We'll call this meeting to order on Monday, April 8th. We're open meeting to start with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Some items that we want to add to the agenda.
Yes, under manager's report, I want to talk a little bit about the Keenan auction. I provided some photographs of a plow, and I'd like to have some discussion on that.
Okay.
And I also want to have some discussion on the administration of the new street ordinance. We could have a little talk about that and what we're already experiencing. Under new business, under the fees for the food truck ordinance, I also would like to add some discussion on the private way fees for the street ordinance that we just approved. So we've got some thoughts on that. And then also under new business, obviously we have the poll permit from CMP. And then I'm seeking permission to release funds under the CIP for a recreation shed, and I can go into that discussion with you. And then finally, we release some funds to replace the generator at the fire station. I can go into detail with that.
Looking for a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Second. Motion by Jason, seconded by Phil. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, next item on the agenda is a public forum, where the board will listen to any public comment on any non-agenda items. Anybody from the audience have anything they want to bring up? Please state your name for the viewers.
Donna Kinderin. And Tom's used to this, I have handouts.
Thank you.
Yeah. And with your permission, I'd like to read this aloud for the record. Arundel's newsletter, The Arrow, has been a popular and valuable means of communication between town government and Arundel residents. As you can see in the attached excerpts from the Arundel Comprehensive Plan, The Arrow is a strongly encouraged vehicle for that communication, and the excerpts are on the reverse side. In recent years, publication of The Arrow has been infrequent at best. Although the phrase "on a regular basis," CA Policy 1.1, does not dictate a schedule for the newsletter, certainly circumstances and the need to communicate important information does. The most recent example that comes to mind is a significant change in transfer station rules and charges. Many residents were surprised and not terribly pleased to find out about those changes from a neighbor or worse when they arrived at the transfer station. A regular update from various boards and committees as they work throughout the year would increase public awareness of the efforts of those who volunteer their time as members of those bodies, and just might increase understanding of important issues as they evolve, and well before public hearings and final votes. This increased awareness might also increase participation. See Policy 2. In Arundel's Municipal Charter, Section 4.0 Selectmen, 4.5 General Powers and Duties, it states, quote, "The principal function of the board is to establish and execute goals, policies, and strategies for the best interests of the town," unquote. Consistent and effective communication with the residents of the town certainly falls under the heading of, quote, "for the best interests of the town," unquote, and the Arrow is certainly an appropriate strategy. The comprehensive plan lists the publication of the Arrow as a high priority, and the responsible party is the town manager. Please note that the comprehensive plan encourages the use of the town website as an addition to, not a substitute for, the Arrow. There was a time in the not-too-distant past when at least some of what was going on in Arundel was published in local newspapers. Now, with the exception of some crimes, major accidents, and the occasional positive story, Arundel is pretty much absent in the local press. No help there. It would be wonderful if everyone in town read the website on a regular basis, but that is not realistic. Many residents do not have access to the internet, and many others simply do not think to check the website often, if at all. A hard copy newsletter delivered to the door is much more likely to be read by residents, especially if it contains important, relevant, and interesting information. In the survey conducted by the Administrative Review Committee, results showed the following. Over 76% of the 1,518 Arundel residents who responded to the survey said they always or sometimes read the Arrow. Over 64% agreed the town should continue to publish the Arrow, and over 63% said it should be available both as a paper version and on the website. Arundel needs to have an engaged and informed population, and there is no excuse for the minimal and sporadic information provided by our town government. Not publishing the Arrow on a regular basis shows a lack of regard for the residents and taxpayers of the town. The Board of Selectmen has an obligation to ensure that the Arrow is regularly produced and distributed to keep all of us informed. Thank you.
Point taken. Thank you. Anybody else have anything else they wanna bring up?
Yes, boy,
Jake, please state your.
oh, I'm sorry. Jake Hawkins. My wife and I, we have a place down the coast in the town of St. George, and they are about the same size as this town, and they apparently don't have any problem getting it out bi-monthly, that is 6 issues a year. And it may not be any more than a couple bean suppers and fish chowder for the local folks, but there are announcements about transfer station stuff. There's announcements about elder care and all these things that are pertinent to running a town. And aside from policy changes and things like this, like what Donna mentioned with the transfer station, which was sort of a surprise, there's plenty of information in town every 2 months to compile a newsletter, to put into a newsletter. I'd really, at the very least, 4 times a year, but it would be nice to have it bi-monthly, so. Thank you.
Any idea, Keith, when the next Arrow?
No, I think it's something we should have a good general discussion on at one of our business meetings as to how you would like to implement some of their requests they have right now. I tell you, and I'll be very frank with you, it's not one of my priorities. Obviously, you can tell by what I've been providing as a product. It's up to, it's something that I'm not focusing on. I have 5 other things that I'm focusing on right now that have taken up my time. So that's not an excuse, it's just, I'm just pointing out the facts of the matter. But I think it's something we should talk about, and how important it is for this board, and how many you would like to have out, and then what content we're going to have it, perhaps maybe developing an outline as to what we would like to have. Maybe there are folks out there that would provide information to us on a bi-monthly basis, as Jake talks about, that it comes in, and then we're able to put that information together in some sort of outline that we agree to. But it rests, the development of it, the printing of it, all rests with the staff. It's not something that I do. We can put it together. Simone is invaluable in putting that material together, and then getting it folded, copied, folded, and then down to Kennebunkport for getting out to the public. So, and we're doing it with the progress reports now, but it just hasn't been on my priority list.
So, we've had this discussion a little bit, on and off, and so I think it's, we ought to put it on an agenda item, and, we need to find a solution. I've heard enough from folks that like to wanna see that, and one way or another, we need to find a solution to be able to get that out there. But we can discuss that as a board to see if the other members feel the same way, but let's put it on an agenda item, and, let's discuss it at our next business meeting. Yeah.
Would it be helpful to you, Keith, to you or to the staff at the town hall, if you maybe had a volunteer group to, like, fold it and put it together and stuff like that, and to feed you information, would that be helpful?
I think the feeding of
I mean,
information is the
could
most.
you explore that maybe?
Yeah, I think the feeding of the information would be the most important part of the, of the thing.
Okay, okay.
And I guess I would describe it more, when I worked in Fort Fairfield, Maine,
Uh-huh.
they had one little, newspaper that would come out weekly, and it would give all kinds of general information about what was going on, sort of what you're talking about now. I'm not saying it would go to that extreme, but any information that we get that's,
Right.
that can be placed in it. As
Well,
long as
just, I guess, maybe keep, when you discuss it, keep that in mind that you might be able to get some people to volunteer to help you out, to get the thing out.
the folding and getting it to the mail is not the biggest.
Okay,
biggest
yeah,
It's
okay.
it's a content and putting the content
Right,
together.
once the content's together and it's all put on the computer, we just print it and then we'll print it on the copy machine, and then we have a folding machine that we
Okay.
own. So the machine folds it for us, and Simone puts the bulk stamp rate on it, and then we take it down to Kennebunkport and mail it.
Okay.
But she's the key to the whole thing,
Yeah.
in putting it together.
Yeah,
While the budget
Jack
got
Reed's.
finalized, Jack Reed's, while the budget got finalized last week, if there are some additional resources that are needed, perhaps that could be revisited within the next few days.
Well, I can
In
tell you,
order
it's
to
about
accomplish this.
$300 to $400 per issue. So it's not a lot of money, I wouldn't consider it being a lot.
You
of
don't
money.
think the budget then would
I don't
need to be
think that,
revised?
yeah, it depends on how frequent, I think we'll have another discussion next week, but the thing is how frequently we wanna get it out. And then what the other board members feel about it.
Donna?
Just to provide a little background that Keith may not be aware of, the comprehensive plan originally called for 4 issues a year. The current comprehensive plan just has a regular newsletter. So we had recognized the last permutation of the comprehensive plan review committee that 4 times a year might not be a reasonable number. So we saw it then more of as an as-needed situation. So in terms of impact on the budget and the time for the staff, if as needed is 3 times a year or 5 times a year, that's really, really what the request is. Certainly the transfer station was an issue that a lot of people would have benefited from a newsletter for. There may, we generally get one prior to town meeting in June. That's an as-needed issue. But certainly as boards and committees work during the course of the year, and here comes some of your content, the chairs of those various committees could be giving regular updates on things that have been accomplished or are in the works, or things that perhaps we would like some public input on. One of the things that the comp plan did the last go around, as we looked at various things in terms of the zoning districts, was rather than sitting amongst ourselves and saying, well, let's make this decision tonight, we called in the owners of the properties that would be affected and said, how do you feel about this, what would you like? Putting that kind of request in the newsletter might have garnered us more public participation, which gives us a better product. There've been a couple of times, Tom will bear me out on this, where the planning board and the comp plan committee have been meeting jointly this year. Something has come up in terms of, people need to know this. Well, how are they going to know it? Well, the newsletter is the answer, because that goes to every household. So I don't know the content, even if a newsletter at one point was, instead of the usual 2 pages folded, if it was simply 1, like the building updates, something, so that people feel connected to what's going on in town.
Good. Any other comments from the board on that? Any other comments from a public forum? Okay, thank you for those comments. Moving on, we'll go to approve the minutes of the March 25th, 2019 meeting.
I didn't see anything in there, I make a motion to approve the minutes as
Motion by Velma to approve the minutes as written,
Second.
seconded by Tom. Any other discussion? All those in favor? One abstention.
Who's saying?
I wasn't here. One meeting. Committees and board reports. You don't have anything, right?
No, I have to meet Thursday.
And I was here for our school board meeting, so I got nothing, okay? Managers report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, first I would want to just inform you that on Wednesday, March 17th, the York County, York County Committee, Budget Committee will be holding a caucus on the budget. What makes it important for me is the meeting will be 6:30 at the York County Government Building, if anybody's interested in attending. But District 2, which we're a part of, makes up Arundel, Biddeford, Kennebunk, and Kennebunkport. And there's a vacant position for an elected person on there. Jack Reeds was the member on that board for the longest of times, and he's no longer going to serve. So if you know of anybody who's interested, it would be great to have their name. Excuse me. I did get a call today from John Bell, who had been speaking with Jack, that he may be interested in serving. So, and seeing he's on the budget board, that may be a good segue in. So, Jack, do you have anything else to add to that at this point?
Well, he said he may be interested. Perhaps I didn't twist his arm hard enough.
You twisted it pretty hard because he called me on the phone.
He twisted him.
Yeah, Joe.
John is really ready to jump into something like that. He's obviously fully qualified. But the county budget is, and the politics of it are very different. So you go through a learning curve.
Well, John says it like it is, so.
The group is working well together now, fortunately, with the county commissioners. And,
I don't think there's many names coming forward, and then the other towns also in the city of Biddeford also have the option of putting somebody on there as well, so.
Kennebunk would,
Oh, okay.
yes.
Yeah, with it.
But if John does
Oh, okay,
finally
that's right.
say yes, the caucus process is one where you have to have elected selectmen
Right,
out there to vote,
to nominate him.
and he or she who has the most selectmen wins. It's just
Okay,
that simple.
Right, we did that for you a few years
Yes.
ago.
okay.
So.
All right, so let me coordinate a little bit more on this. I may have to have a couple more bodies go up to the caucus on Wednesday the 17th.
Doesn't take very long, less than an hour.
Let me follow up with John one more time to ensure that he really wants to do it, and then we'll move forward with it.
Okay.
I provided to you, we just received a financial audit. I'm not prepared to go through it, but I wanted to make sure that you guys had copies of it tonight. When I look at it, I look really where the fund balance is in terms of where we were last year compared to this year, and our thoughts about using $300,000 of that fund balance to offset the taxes as much as we can, which is pretty consistent with what you've done in the past. I believe the audit shows that we're very comfortable in doing that once again. And once you take a look at it, if you feel differently, then we can have a discussion. But I think that based on what I observed, that we should be okay. It will give us enough cash flow based on the MMA's recommendation and our auditor's recommendation, what we should have in there for funding. So I think we're gonna be okay. So I think worst comes to worst, we certainly can do that again. So those are the things that I saw real quick. The management letter seemed straightforward. Again, I was very pleased with the deputy treasurer's handling of the audit this year. They were here for less than a full day and got all the information they needed. They left, they made a couple phone calls to both her and I, and essentially they had the material they needed in order to complete the audit. So everything that they wanted early on, we provided to them. They talked to us, provided whatever thoughts they had, and it went really well, and it continues to get better as the years go on, so I'm pretty confident with the audit that we have.
I'll pass on to her from the board that we appreciate her help.
Just an update on the military truck, Roger and I spoke again today. The truck that we purchased is really in Maryland Eastern Shore, it's in Parsons Field, I think, or Parsonsburg, Maryland.
20 miles south of Dover, not Dover, but 20 miles south of Delaware.
Yeah.
It's in no man's land, is what it
Yes.
is.
So, Roy's towing from Saco will be going down to get this truck for us and bringing it back. Ray's towing, I'm sorry. With the cost of the truck at $2,800 and the tow at $3,000, for the amount that we have invested, which would, if we bought a new six-wheel dump truck, we're in $180,000. I think we're doing extremely well, and I commend Roger for his efforts to try to find these trucks for us. So this one, we knew it wasn't running. We narrowed it down to the batteries that were bad. It only has 36,000 original miles on it. I think when we get it here, they said that one of the injectors may be bad, so we'll get that fixed and try to get that on the road. So big savings for us. So.
Nice. Good job, Roger.
It's not here yet.
Yeah.
Dovetailing with that is the photograph I gave you with the Wausau plow. That plow is at Keenan Auctions on Thursday. As you know, I think Roger and I think that Selectmen Labby has elaborated on this. These auctions go on, and the spring auction is put on where all this equipment is for sale. Roger drove up and saw this plow, which he felt would fit well into our fleet.
Did you print the email from Travis?
I did. I have the email, but I did not print it for them. But essentially, Roger saw that it was an HP Fairfield plow, contacted the person who sells these and said that the plow would retail for $12,000, and he felt that anything from $4,000 below would be a good deal, is what he described. So, essentially what I'm trying to get at is that we could send Roger up there, but we have to give him authority to spend some money and provide him essentially a blank check from the town, so he can fill it out, and in fact, if he finds something that we can purchase. So, I don't know your comfort level on that. I'm pretty confident that Roger's not gonna take $4,000 of town money and leave town, but at the same token.
We get very far.
At the same token, it's something that we normally don't do, so.
I mean, we certainly give approval not to exceed.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, you can do that. I really would look for a motion and a vote on that, so we could have that authority to move forward. And then we'll work out the logistics with Lisa as to how I think it's more of a check that we'll just provide, and you don't have to fill it out.
Somebody's got to enlighten us on the process. That
Yeah,
I've never been to one of these.
yeah, and maybe Phil can enlighten us a little bit about this process and how we go forward.
Yeah, you put in your bid, they stand on the back of a pickup truck, auction it off, and they give you a number, and the winning number, at the end of the auction or any time afterwards, they have a trailer with a bunch of people in there that take care of all the paperwork
Okay,
and accept the money.
okay,
And then you have a certain amount of time, it's usually 4 o'clock the next day, they get your material off the premises.
Okay.
It's very simple.
So if he goes up there and they conduct the auction, first we have to check in and we get a number?
You gotta
When you
register.
win, yes,
And then when the item comes up for auction, we can bid on that?
correct.
Okay.
The actual bid process though, you're saying you have to write down a proposed bid?
No,
No.
It's
no,
an
no,
open,
So,
it's
open
open bid.
I
And they
wasn't
also
sure.
have online bidding,
And they also add a premium of 10%
10%
that you will pay above the bid price.
Okay.
above your bid, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And the town
At least it
doesn't
was
take
10% the last time I looked, but,
Yeah.
so you gotta check to see whether it's more.
Okay, so 10% of 4,000 is what, $400? So, I guess give us up to, authority up to 4,400.
I'll increase it a little, just in case the
I'd say
fee
five.
is
yeah, I would
Go
go
to five.
five, yeah.
Alright,
Yeah.
to exceed 5,000, I'll make that motion. Not to
It looks
exceed
like a
5,000.
pretty nice plow, it's gonna bring some decent money.
yeah, it may,
brand,
So that
brand new
would
plows, cause right now what we're at is we're using a spare plow that is pretty well beat. But we had one break this winter, by the time we get done, it was gonna cost us almost $3,000 to fix that one plow, the A-frame is bad on it. These things aren't cheap. Brand new plows in the vicinity of 6,800 to 7,500, depending on what brand you get, so. This is a really well-made plow, it's a Wausau, which is one of the better plows. So, I mean, if we can make it work, fine,
And
it
that
would
would,
either
that would
fit
come out
one
of
of the
the
existing trucks or this other truck we're getting.
capital. So we got a motion by Jason for $5,000.
Where's it coming from though?
capital reserve.
Okay, I think we.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got a motion by Jason to,
Not to exceed.
not to exceed $5,000, from the capital, fund, and, seconded by Phil. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Motion carried. Phil, what type of payment do they accept?
They'll take checks, cash, credit card.
They'll take anything, any given money.
Yeah, and they'll take personal checks.
Oh, really?
Oh, take your checkbook with you, Roger.
Yeah, we'll pay you back.
And
I'd
they,
be sick that day.
they announced it all the years they've been taking personal checks. They haven't been burnt, so they'll keep taking them.
Oh,
Oh, no
okay.
kidding.
Wow. The last thing I had on the manager's business was, this has come up, I talked to Jim Nagle today, now that we've passed the street, construction ordinance and changed some of the modifications, particularly for private ways, we have, eight or nine folks that have come in looking for an application. Now we have the administration of that. My thought was, and as I spoke to Jim about it, I think my thought would be that the planner would continue to provide the administrative oversight of this up to the point where the abutters are notified, that whatever information needs to get to the paper, gets to the paper, for whatever process that we have. We were talking about that, we didn't know who else really we should do it. And my thought was that we should just keep it with the planner, to allow him to do that work, because he knows the process and knows how to do it, so. That was my thought on that. Do I hear any strong objections to it?
No.
It seems
Yeah.
fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we have the, you skipped over
Yeah.
this, but the building committee meeting.
Yes, right, sorry about that. The building committee public information meeting, we're gonna have another one on the 23rd of April, 7 o'clock here in this in this room. Hopefully we get a few more people to attend, and we'll see how that goes, that process goes. So, the progress report went out, provided some of that information, also gave the notice in the back of the progress report about the meeting, so.
Good.
hopefully it went out enough time so people remember.
Okay. Good, we have no old business. Moving on to new business. Food truck ordinance fees.
Yeah, now that we've approved that ordinance and we purposely provided the ability to establish the fees through the selectmen process, I've looked back at my records and, we'd come up with some thoughts about how we should, charge the fees for these food trucks. And my recollection on my notes from October, was that we were gonna charge $250 for the season, $50 for a weekend, which would include a Friday, and $20 for an event. That seemed to fall in, if I recall correctly, it seemed to fall in the middle of what our neighbors were doing in terms of fees that they had established. And to me, it seems like a pretty good place to start. As you know, these fees can be modified and adjusted by the board just by having your meetings and making those adjustments accordingly. So unless I hear strong objections, I would be looking for a recommendation or a motion to approve $250 for the season, $50 for the weekend, including Friday, and $20 for an event day event.
What is the season?
I think we have it in the ordinance.
Do we
I
have
think,
the dates? Oh, yeah. okay.
yeah, it's in the ordinance, it tells you how long the season is. I didn't bring the ordinance with me.
I think we should go up a little bit on the one day of the weekend.
Can these fees be waived for nonprofit?
I believe, yeah, they can be by the board. They can be waived, and then if they're on a, the other thing we did is if it's a wedding venue or somebody has it on their neighborhood, there's no fee involved. They can have their event, have a food truck on their property, have their day event, and then,
Well, I mean, I figured, on a weekend, I would say, up to $5. But that's just my guess, not my thought. Even the season, I think $250 is a little low. Obviously, we don't wanna turn these people away, but.
Yeah, that's my point. I think we gotta test the waters first.
Right,
See
well,
how-
that was the other thing,
Try
we
it
can
now.
leave them as is and see what we get,
See
and
what
then at
happens.
that point, we can make a determination if we wanna go up a little bit, or, I mean, I don't think we're gonna see a lot, I think we know the ones that are gonna be here, and the ones that we're here to try to change the ordinance, I think that's all we're gonna see, but. Okay, looking for a motion to accept the fees as stated.
So move.
Motion by Velma, seconded by Jason, for fees of $250 a season, $50 for a weekend, which includes a Friday, and $20 for a one-day event. Any more discussion on that? All those in favor?
The other thing related to fees, again, getting back to private ways, I don't have it, Tad can even talk to me today. Generally for, a public, road through the planning board, it's $500 to do an application, which provides administrative site, staff oversight, it also provides notices, publications in the paper, so on and so forth. So we talked today about what we should establish for a private way, and my thought was, though it won't be to the extent that the planning board will be meeting, still the notices have to go out, the process, the paperwork has to be collected, and then the site, review committee has to go on site, review with the project, we have to coordinate those things. So my thought was to really split that in half and go to 250, which I think will cover all of our costs. I don't think we need to be trying to absorb any cost within an application for staff members being there. I don't think that, but I wanna have enough funding there to cover whatever notices that we have to provide to the public, prior to the meeting being held, so my thought was $250. Which is half of what the planning board now required.
Any discussion on that?
On both, Keith? Minor and major? Is that what you prefer?
Yeah, I would say, yeah,
Doesn't matter.
yeah.
Yeah, cause the review process is gonna be the same.
Right.
every one of them. Okay, hearing no other discussion, looking for a motion.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Velma, seconded by Tom, to set the private way fees at $250. All those in favor?
Also in your packet, I provided to you an application for field use for Gilliam Field. This has to do with the, Kennybunk Court Little League. As I understand, the Little League has a number of Arundel boys playing both minors and major baseball. As Arundel didn't have enough to cover all the numbers in the fields and teams, so some of these kids are in that program, so they're looking for field space. So they've added their application, the recreation director has signed off on it, the, public works director has signed off on it, and, Eric Williams, the president of the Little League, has signed off it, so, Mr. Burnham, who was the gentleman who moved this, forward, talked to Eric, the Little League, just to make sure that we weren't interfering with anything that Little League had going on, so. What it now requires is, you're signing off on it, and the only thing that I would add, if you approve this, would be a motion to approve pending them providing me a certificate of insurance naming the town of Arundel as an insured party. The certificate they provided to us had the town of Kennybunk on it. So we've indicated to them that we want one from, that insures us. So if you agree with it, that would be my recommendation, to put it pending the certificate of insurance being provided to us.
Did they say it might be a problem to have?
I don't think so. We told them, and I just don't think it got here. We finally wrapped this up on Friday. I think, he just didn't have the paperwork yet.
So Arundel didn't have enough to field a minor and a major league team?
According to this note on the types of activities here.
Seaball, softball, coach pitch. There's not enough to even have one team for the league.
I think,
Five
yeah.
Arundel kids are on this Kennybunk team, because it's, Arundel's coach was, he's the coach, he was Arundel's coach last year.
I think what happens is there's so much variety for these kids to do now. They have to really be committed to playing baseball. It's not like, they have lacrosse and they have indoor soccer and they've got all kinds of AAU basketball. Even for the young kids now, they have these basketball clinics and stuff, so it becomes a burden for, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I'm okay with this, I just wanna make sure that, we waive a fee, right? There's a fee associated with this, this is for our kids,
Right,
along with Kennebunk kids, but.
right, I would waive the fee as
Yeah.
well.
Motion to approve,
So a motion to approve,
including the waiver of the fee.
for, use of the Gilliam Field, with a condition of the insurance and, waiving of the fees.
Second.
Okay, motion by Jason, seconded by Velma, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you. Yes, we also have a pole permit that was provided to us for, I think it's 422 Limerick Road, which you go down past the town office heading towards, Route 1, it's on the left-hand side, almost adjacent to the, Eastern Trail. There's a new home going in there,
That
so
new house that's
yeah.
being built
Right.
just before the trail.
Yep.
From what I can gather, it looks like they have to add a pole in between two other poles, between 104 and 103, to get the power across the street to this new house, so. Roger's looked at it, he's signed off on it, so it would be my motion, it would be my recommendation to go ahead and sign the pole permit as reviewed.
Motion by Jason. Second. Seconded by Phil, to approve poll permit for, what was the address on that?
422.
422 Limit Road. All those in favor? Motion carries. Keith, do you have
I have the original here, so,
the application for Gilliam Field?
I do,
I have to sign that.
yeah, sorry.
Okay, next item on the agenda is, release some funds for a shed and a generator.
Yeah, the first would be a shed. This has been a work in progress for the recreation department. I guess there's been some changes in terms of storage here at the MLD school, and we have such a accumulation of gear and equipment that she was seeking out the opportunity to place a shed here. The shed would be 12 by 16 in size, and it would be located to the rear of, to the Limerick Road end of the gymnasium. If you go out the emergency doors right there, if you're going out tonight, it would be right to the right, just before you get to Limerick Road, there's a spot there. I gave you a photograph, should be on the back of that sheet, right there, shows you exactly where it's going to be. She reached out to the alternative education students at the high school to build this shed through their instructor, and they're prepared to build it for an education piece for them. She sought and was given approval by the RSU 21 Facilities Committee to place the shed there. And I spoke with the code officer today, who is prepared to provide a permit for the construction of this shed based on what occurs here tonight. So I think she has one more meeting with the school committee to review the shed, the placement of it, so on and so forth. So the diagrams in there shows what the students are going to do. It's going to look aesthetically as nice as it can next to the building. You know, provide us the necessary storage needed, for the department. The estimated cost for materials, is $5,000, so it would be my, recommendation to take 5,000 out of the, Park Reserve, Municipal Recreation Park Reserve Fund, which presently has 88,000 in it, to construct this shed.
So this shows, it's gonna be sitting on some sonotubes.
Yep.
Who's gonna put in the sonotubes? The school is?
Well, he's laughing. He may get caught in it, I'm not sure, I don't know. Unless you know more than I do.
Yeah, I know too much already.
So it sounds like maybe Public Works will be putting something in.
I didn't want this sitting on the grass, right,
Right.
and that's how I noticed this one.
May I speak to this for a moment?
Sure.
Yes, Jim?
As a facilities committee member, yes, they plan to do the whole job, and yes, there'll be, tubes, cement tubes, I'm not
Sonotubes.
the right terms, that will be put in, and it'll sit off the ground. It'll be just off the little, pathway, the asphalt pathway that runs out from the back of the cafeteria area. Far enough away from the building so there won't be snow issues. And, it's going to be designed such that it blends in with the rest of the building, so that it doesn't look like it's a sore thumb sticking out there. That was one of the concerns the facilities committee had, is that it would look as nice as the rest of the building right behind it. So, those were the big major caveats, and there's some discussion too about how we would be lighted, power and security lighting also, because there would be a gap between the main building and the shed. So those discussions were held.
There's no plan for power in this thing at all, right?
No.
It doesn't show, but there will need, obviously, to be some level of light inside the shed.
Solar.
And
Pretty easy.
whether, one discussion was along the line of small solar panel and battery to provide the necessary power.
So Roger's gonna put in the sonotubes.
Alternatively, you could simply bring power out from the school too.
I don't think he's had that directive yet, but he's probably been approached about it.
Yeah, I was voluntold.
So you put in the sonotubes and what, gravel?
So if some chance this requires power, it needs to go back through, it needs to be part of the permit initially, right?
Yeah, I wasn't led to believe that any power was associated with this shed. Cold storage,
Yeah, you could easily
you
cheapen.
know, they got those LED lights, you can put them inside and push them and they start, and they're battery operated, so
Yeah.
I think we can find a way to
Okay.
let them inside.
Okay, any other comments from the board? I'm looking for a motion to release $5,000 from the Municipal Park Reserve Suite for the building of a shed.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Velma, seconded by Jason. All those in favor?
Thank you. Finally, I'm also seeking the release of capital reserve funds for the purchase of a new generator for the fire station. Right now, we have a 20K Dayton generator that's been there, I think, since the building was built. We received notices, I think, last year that it's starting to get tired and it's time. So we put some money aside in the capital equipment fund for the purchase of this generator. Power Products has provided, after the bids came in, Power Products gave us the best 22 kW, so it's gonna be slightly bigger than the one we have, for $10,400. I think that was it, yeah. And then, the power to the, Plumondon will finish hooking it up, which would be the remaining of the, money, which would bring the total to $12,500 for the installation of the generator. It's a Cummins motor, so the first thing I thought of was that it was going to be diesel, but it's not, it's propane. But it's a commercial grade 22 kW that should give us years of service there. Sized to take in consideration what we have going on there, as well as whatever future needs we may need moving forward, for expansion of the fire station, if in fact that comes sometime in the future, so.
And that would come out of the fire department capital reserve?
Right, right now, there's $146,000 in that account. So it would be my recommendation to remove $12,500 to take care of the generator.
That fit on the existing pad that's there?
Yes, it's what I heard. We'll find out when the devil's in the details.
Most of the new ones that I've seen actually are smaller than the older ones.
That one is saying now, is that a diesel? Is that
No,
Yeah.
it's gas, propane.
propane? Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to release $12,500 from the fire department capital reserve for generator and install for the fire department.
So moved.
Second,
Motion by Tom, seconded by Velma. Any other discussion? All those in favor? All right. Anything else on the new business?
So,
Okay, other business, payable and payroll warrants.
make a motion to sign the payroll warrants.
Motion by Velma, seconded by Jason. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Anybody else got anything? Don't make a motion now. Anybody else got anything else they wanna bring up? Hold on. I just wanna make sure next meeting that we'll do the, we'll talk about the warrant.
the warrant?
Warrant, and then we'll have a discussion with the underlying form.
Will do.
Okay, good. Looking for a motion to adjourn? Motion by Jason, seconded by Phil. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Extension. Motion to adjourn at 7:55.